All right. We started 1 Peter last week, and we said that Peter deals with the day-to-day problems in the Christian life. And he focuses on how to be a good sufferer, put it that way. There is a difference between a good sufferer and a bad sufferer. The bad sufferer is always whining about his suffering. And the good sufferer praises God in the midst of his suffering. And that's one of Peter's goals in this. And he tells us how to do that, how to have our minds clear and not always thinking about what we don't have and how we don't feel and do feel and all those things. And God gave us the kingdom, the church, to help us with all that, to keep our mind off of fleshly things and onto spiritual things. And that's really what Peter's trying to do here, to lift up all the Jews that are scattered all throughout Asia. His ministry was to the Jews, but it really helps us as well because it was the same message by this time, and it was always the same message, but been made real now. It's very out in the open. There's no questioning what the message is, and it's all the same to everybody. But Peter, being a circumcised Jew, knew it from ground up. He was to be minister to the Jews. Well, Paul was also circumcised Jew, but Paul had many dealings with Gentiles already. He was a Roman. So Paul had all the knowledge that Peter had, but also was made to dwell with Gentiles most of his life. And so that's why Paul was given that ministry. Peter wasn't so much that way. If you remember, Paul and Peter had more than one conversation where they weren't so friendly. And it was because Peter was being very rigid and Jewish to new converts. And Paul withstood him to the face. He said, "Listen here, mister, you're going to push people away, not bring them in." And Peter later agreed and got himself right. But it's hard to get over that old mindset, isn't it? It's hard. We've been raised up this way. Certain things are abominations to us, and anybody that has that problem or anything like that, we don't want them around us, and we would try to make them become like us before we let them around us, type of thing. That was Peter's problem. And that's why Jesus had to tell him, when you are converted, strengthen your brethren. See, there was another conversion that needed to take place in Peter after his salvation. And that's what it was. Same thing had to happen to me. That's how come I can see it so clearly now. There's more than one conversion in the Christian's life. Yes? Yes? Yeah. Well, it's what... No, we don't need that, but that's just something they're doing in Israel. That's going to purge the ground where they build this new temple they're wanting. Yeah. That's Old Testament, whenever they built a temple, they had to purge it with red heifers, pure red heifers, no blemishes in there. Couldn't be even any spot of white hair or anything. It had to be pure red. But that's something that just tells us the nearness of the times. You know, they have everything they need to build that temple, except for the place where they got to put it on. They don't have rights to that yet. But this peace deal that could be coming really soon could make that a possibility. So, yeah, for the Messiah to come. Because the Old Testament says he shall come suddenly to his temple. And so the temple's been destroyed all these years. They believe until they build the temple, the Messiah can't come. That's what the Jews believe. We know he's already come. They rejected him. But that's the temple the Antichrist will walk into and say that he is God. And hopefully we are gone by then. We want to be gone by then, hopefully, in the rapture. Okay, so as we said, 1 Peter deals with the day-to-day Christian life and how to be a good keeper of the law of Christ. Trying to transition from the old law that puffed you up, made you think you was something, to the law of Christ that makes you level yourself out with everybody. We're all the same, and we need to love one another the same. And he says in verse 22 of chapter 1, this is to the believing Jews. He says, seeing ye have purified in obeying the truth through the unto unfeigned of the brethren. Now, it's very important that we get this, and I've been trying to draw this out from the last several books that we've went through. The love of the brethren is the core of the gospel message. The Bible says if you have not love for the brethren, the love of God doesn't dwell in you. It's not there. And people that don't know that, may be in darkness. They don't really understand that, and they may be believers, but they'll never be fulfilled in this life if they're forsaking the assembling of themselves together. See, that rides right in with Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25. So all these books are crammed together right here because they basically have a message that flows together right on out to the book of Revelation. Trying to get the Jewish believers to come together and realize it's not about just between them and God. The only way they can have a good them and God is to have a good me and God's people. That's the point he's trying to make. And so you purify your soul by unfeigned love of the brethren. That's how you clear your conscience on a weekly basis. In the Old Testament, they slaughtered calves and they slaughtered bulls. They slaughtered lambs to have a clear conscience. That was the sacrifices they made. Now the sacrifices we make is we give of something that cost us something for somebody else. We give of ourselves to somebody else to see that they have what we have. You see, not monetarily, it can be, but it's talking spiritually. Seeing ye have purified your souls in obeying the truth. What's obeying the truth? Loving the brethren.